technically. Hey everyone, welcome back to Heal Yourself Naturally. So happy to see everybody. We have so much to discuss today. It's one of my favorite topics. I was actually on the phone with Hava on my way back from being out earlier today, and I told her I'm so excited to speak about parasites, which not a lot of people are, but I'm really excited. So today we're talking about parasites, all of our favorite subjects. We are gonna go into, talks about bowel movements again. We've had a bowel podcast before, but now we're going deep in there into the little pests that live in us, and we'll talk all about it. Um, so let's just start off by saying parasites live in us no matter what. They can be good, but when they have, you know, breached the point of good, they become a huge nuisance in your body, and they can overgrow and take over your life in the most obnoxious and terrible ways, bring on many diseases, change the course of hormones in your body. There's so much that they can do. So we want to talk about, first, let's talk about, balancing that out. And if you do have a problem with parasites, what can you do, Sarah, for someone who's, that problem has become way more of a nuisance in their life?
Okay, so, well, first, I kind of, I have a lot of herbs that I use for parasites, but first we have to
Right,
hone in on what we mean by parasites.
right.
Because there's a lot of parasite stuff floating around the ethers, and I can always tell when it's floating around the ethers because people come in the shop and say, "What do you have for parasites?" I heard everyone has parasites, and I just do not believe that. And I know that there's a lot of different fields of thought out there, and it's just that I just don't think we all have parasites, but we all need to understand what that means. Like, what's the definition of parasite? Okay, because we can have parasites in our liver, we can have parasites in our bloodstream, we can have parasites in our brains, we can have parasites in our gut. Lyme is considered a parasite. So if anybody
Right.
has Lyme or co-infections, those are parasites. So I suppose if we added all that up, a lot of people have parasites. And then if you're eating raw fish or things like meat or foods that have parasites and you take them in, yes, you could have a parasite in your gut. So if we're talking about, are we talking about gut parasites? Are we talking about like,
I think it's safe to say we can talk more about gut parasites today. That's where I was going, because a lot of
okay,
us live with gut parasites.
yeah,
And it's more of a discussion that's like, trending, and what you were saying, like people come in and say, I have parasites, I need to take care of them, right?
yes.
Like you said, they can live in many other different places in your body, but mainly I'd love to focus on gut parasites
Okay.
today.
And so when someone comes in and says, I think I have a parasite, then I'm again asking your series of questions. Well, why do you think that?
Right.
Um, and some of the things that I would note that would, I've always encouraged people to go get tested. Just go get a stool test so we know what we're dealing with. I had a woman that came in the shop that swears she had tapeworms, and it took her forever. And she was an older woman, and people really didn't listen to her because she was an older woman. And there's a lot of discrimination that happens when you're older and you're by yourself and you're alone and you go to the doctor all the time with
Right.
complaints, and then people stop listening to you. So I
Yeah.
was like, okay, I don't know what I'm dealing with a parasite. So I have a couple of remedies in my shop that I have just as like a general gut cleanses. Um, but if you're really dealing with a parasite, say Giardia or something, you're gonna know if you have a parasite. You'll have major diarrhea. Whenever you eat, you'll feel horrible. Some of the like some of the symptoms would be, especially at night, they get active. As soon as it's almost like if you've ever had a baby, right? As
Right.
soon as you sit down and you're quiet, that baby does backflips. And that's kind of babies are kind of like a parasite too, if you think about it. But it's a good parasite. But it's like,
Bloodsuckers.
but it's like the same situation can happen at night. They wake up, and so then I'm like, okay, now we're on to something. Now
Right.
we're on to something. It's different than say you just have a bacterial overgrowth in your gut that, tons of different bacteria and viruses and things live in our guts concomitantly, right? They live in symbiosis with us, but if they're overgrown, that can cause a lot of gut issues as well. So we need to just kind of figure out how bad things are, what is happening in there, and what parasite we're dealing with. I like to know these things.
Right.
So back to your original question, there's some really powerful antimicrobials out there that I use, and well, one in particular is black walnut hull,
Right.
which I find is very good at even just cleaning up the gut if it's just typical like leaky gut stuff. But I've used it with other, with parasites like names some like Blasto, I think is one. Giardia seems to be the one that comes to mind. Giardia is very common because Giardia can be is in the water supply, especially out west near cattle ranches and things like that. People tend to, especially rafters, they go rafting and then they get some of that water in their mouth. Or the last day in your Mexican vacation, these are parasites.
That happened to me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it happens to me every time I went to Mexico. I haven't gone in a long time, but
Yeah.
so I'm using things like black walnut hull, which is a powerful antimicrobial. I'm using it in powder form or tincture form, and people are taking it internally several times a day. We're hitting it hard herbally. I have a lot of different herbs that I use, but my other favorite would be black seed, which is Nigella sativa. And that one might people might know that one because it's also considered your herbal ivermectin, you know. The
Nigella seeds.
Yeah, black seed, Nigella
Oh,
seed.
those are probably my favorite thing to bake with.
And they're very good for you too. And they're very
Yeah.
anti inflammatory. People are using them for things like Lyme disease as well. I have it in my apothecary. I have the oil, or you can do the ground seeds. It just depends. Both are very good. I also make an extract with that. So black walnut hull, black seed, and you know, people have heard of wormwood.
Wormwood,
And
yeah.
wormwood is Artemisia absinthium, which
Hmm.
is related to Sweet Annie, which is also called sweet wormwood, and that's Artemisia annua. Both of those I use we could use them for Lyme disease, but for any kind of parasite, really. Um, and so extract or powder form is good for that. I don't do teas for parasites necessarily, unless it's Lyme disease. I have a tea for that, but you really kind of want to hit it hard and hit it often if you're going to do the herbal route.
Right.
So I guess I'll stop there. Those are like three that I can think off the top of my head. There's a lot of other things out there, and I'm sure Hava's going to touch on that. But just to reiterate again, actually find out if you have a parasite because there's a lot of issues with people's gut that you can think it's a parasite, but it's probably not. It could be any number of things like food sensitivities, allergies, things like that. So,
Right. So one way to find out, you said, is by getting your stool checked.
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
what kind of signs would you see?
Well, so typically, they're looking for things like larvae,
Right.
which is one stage of a parasite. Usually parasites are like wormy, worms, or there's usually like a worm or bacteria or something. There's usually like there's life cycles to it. So in the case of like Giardia or something, it's a larvae. It's going to come out
Right.
in the feces, so they're going to actually see it. And in the Lyme community, because there's such an immune down regulation with Lyme with a lot of people, it makes them more susceptible to these parasites. So we have to take that into consideration because anything we ingest could potentially be
Harmful.
contaminated, right?
Hmm.
And so if you're strong, your body can deal with it. Sometimes it depends on what it is. But the Lyme community tends to suffer a lot from different types of parasites just because their bodies just are not getting rid of, stuff. They're not strong enough. So, but yeah, a stool sample will tell you. Yes. A tapeworm is another common one
Right.
in this.
Hava, what about you? What are your suggestions on identifying first if you have um parasites in your gut? We're specifically talking about gut now. Or what are your beliefs on parasites?
Um, okay, so by me, it's not that I'm really looking if person has a parasite. It's just we always assume that people have it. That I would say I would say maybe in a more holistic approach, maybe my approach, I don't know, but I do feel like that most people they have it. So my approach would be you definitely have. So I'm not really looking now to really dive in and start checking which kind, but I start from the point where I say obviously you have, because from working with people for so many years, I just learned then that all the problems that we have, they are basically because of some sort of a toxicity. And if there is a toxicity, then there is a parasite, because the parasites are you mentioned this in the beginning. You said that they are necessary, but if they
Right.
are too much, then it's a trouble, right?
If there's
So
overgrowth of them, yeah.
right, so if they overgrow, so basically they are part of our life, part of our living. And so I'm not really looking into them. I'm just asking simple questions, and trying to get rid of the a main cause of the problem, and not look as a parasite as something is there because how I can say that. I'm trying to put my words in the correct way. So basically the parasites are there. They're not the one that I'm looking for. I'm looking for the main core. What is the toxicity that caused the problems? I don't know if I'm saying this correct.
No,
Yes.
you did.
I understand. Yeah.
Because they
Yeah,
live in
hopefully
they
people
thrive in
understand.
toxic
In our
environments, right?
time, it's just become this thing like, oh, I have parasites. Like we all have parasites. So let's start in the beginning. We all have parasites, but the parasites are there for a reason. They are there to clean the junk out. So if you really treat it and remove the junk, what's inside, what brought them in the first place, then obviously they will just walk out and walk away, or they will go down, or dilute themselves, or will disappear, because they will say, oh, that host is not so delicious anymore. Let's walk to another host, because the parasites are basically are eating from the host. They basically eating and pooping and everything inside, but the reason why they are there. So most people say, oh, we remove the, oh, we get rid of the parasite. But if you didn't treat the main core of the problem, what brought the parasite in the beginning, it doesn't matter, because it's the same thing. It's like you covering up on something that if you didn't treat the main root, basically. And if you do the same thing as everyone else, you continue eating junk, but you say, but I'm going to the certain place and I'm removing those parasites. They will come back again. So didn't do anything new. That's the whole idea. I want to people think a little bit different. Take the crowd of people who are listening to us and think a little bit different from what they hear in the mainstream news all the time. That's the whole idea, basically, because if you look at the videos, they just show you, oh, your problem's all because of the parasites. That's not true. The parasites are there, just part of living with you and eating and doing whatever they're supposed to do, because someone brought them, someone invited them, someone called them, come inside, right? And what are those stuff that brought them in the first place? That's usually poor diet, right? The poor diet are one of the biggest sources. And most people, they eat outside. They don't cook their wholesome meals at home. Many people just buy whatever. They don't really care what kind produce they buy. They just buy parsley, cilantro, and if it's infested with bugs, they will just wash them off and not really pay attention much into it. So obviously you'll have it. And closer to the summertime, there will be, certain worms in strawberries and berries. And many people, they are not aware of those, and they'll just put straight in their mouths without even washing, right? That's parasites. You're inviting them. And what caused that you don't understand the basics of how to handle a clean your meal, your food, right? Those basics are so important. Other things, they're poor hygiene. Most people don't understand that we need to train our children and ourselves how to clean our butt. And most people don't understand. And they think, oh, I'm wiping with the paper. You're wiping with your paper. You don't do shit. I'm sorry. Because wiping with the paper doesn't help you. You have to wash it with the soap. You have to clean the area so that way there will be no on what to munch later on. I'm sorry, it's disgusting, but I have to say that, which is correct. And I've seen children who, without the care of parents, have been sent to the school and they would poop and there was no teacher around to clean them. And I found children munching on their own poop. I saw that with my own eyes. And you might say, how's that possible? Well, that's possible because children, they don't know, right? So is the parasite is the one that we need to cry? No, it's because we or teachers are not aware of it, right? So that's another thing. And then another thing, obviously, is constipation. If you don't poop and you leave a lot of garbage, then listen, if you don't clean your kitchen and your garbage can, and you don't remove from your kitchen all the trash out, then you just buy a bigger bag. In a couple months you'll end up with parasites, worms, flies, smell, whatever you want, right? So it's the same thing. It's about
Right.
removing toxins. So constipation is one of those as well. And if we remove all those, we make sure that we eat clean, we wash our hands, we really scrub our nails, we know exactly what we do, we don't munch on nails, we keep our body clean, then the parasite will say, okay, this is not such a nice environment and we're not interested here because there's no way for us to survive, so they'll just leave.
Right. What are some of your favorite herbs? I know black walnut is also one of your favorite herbs to treat parasites. What are some other things? She mentioned nigella seeds, black walnut.
Well, I wrote the whole thing about this because it was so important. So obviously what Sarah said, wormwood is incredible, and black walnut, and also green walnut. And look, I made this delicious drink. It's I still has walnuts inside, but it's something that it's. I learned this from our farmers market. A lady who sells fruits from Penny. She taught me this recipe where you get walnuts and you soak them in brandy, and then afterward you kind of let them infuse for a long time, and then you strain them, and then you add more brandy and you add more cloves and stuff, and that becomes a delicious, I think it's called they usually serve this as a delicious drink on New Year's Eve, if I'm not mistaken, right? But it's also anti-parasite remedy right here, something that we knew before. Now, another wonderful is a sage, is very good. Then fennel is very good. Then I also mentioned peach leaves. Peach leaves are very good to remove parasites. And you know what I found also? The papaya is very good. Pineapple is very good. And so eating those stuff basically as a part of our diet is absolutely incredible, right? Then our favorite herb, burdock root.
Burdock root.
I know, I say burdock and everybody's like, burdock root. Okay,
Burdock root.
I love it, how the way you say it. Okay, and then pomegranates. pomegranate seeds and pomegranate molasses, and just even preparing a tea from pomegranate peels.
Husk, yeah.
It's absolutely incredible and something that we've done in Georgia for years. And another wonderful thing, a delicious fruits that serve as a jam in Georgia, Russia, Armenia, all those places, is the black walnuts. When they're still babies, you soak them for some time, and then you basically simmer them with some sugar, and you just eat them like that, a black walnut, and they pop in your mouth. So here, incredible, right? Pumpkin seeds. So I brought pumpkin seeds to show the people. They maybe don't know what the pumpkin seeds are. The pumpkin seeds or pumpkin seed tea or water is very good, right? Another wonderful thing that it's not an herb, but the fossil shell is wonderful. Fossil
Diatomaceous
shell,
earth. Yeah.
yeah. Fossil shell is very good, and taking a teaspoon through, let's say, a month, or no, usually about 2 weeks or 16 days, and then resting and then go back again. It's very helpful. Garlic. We forgot about the garlic, but the garlic. And listen, I will say this. Maybe it's a funny story, but in Georgia, in a school, they would do stool tests.
Sorry.
You know, they would do a stool test all the time, and I found that we were supposed to poop in the small boxes and bring it to the school, so that way they tested if we have a parasites. That was something that we've done for years. I
Wow.
remember that. Yeah,
That's
something that
cool.
we would done in school. So there would be a set time twice a year that we were supposed to poop and keep a small poop and bring it to the school for test. That's in the that's ugly. But
And
that
if
was
people had
interesting.
parasites, the school would personally treat them?
Yes. And also what the one of the famous remedies was at that time, I remember, when they would found there is a parasites, they would ask to have eat a bread, and then you take a garlic and you really scrub on the outside
On the
there of a
toast, yeah.
bread. How you said? Yeah.
On the
So they
crust.
would on the crust, and then you eat it this way. Was the antiparasitic remedy at that time, I remember. So yeah.
Wow. Well, I mean, diet, in terms of having things in your diet, you mentioned our last podcast too, how much black walnut or walnut was a huge part of your culture. So,
Yeah, it's so interesting,
yeah,
just to now remember all these things. But now let's say we do the same thing. Instead forcing the children to take Tylenol in schools, we ask everyone to bring
to
us
bring a
your
stool sample.
stool.
No,
We'll see how many
I think the
parasites.
schools would kneel over and die before they did that. Educators of our time now, not that they're bad,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
they're
obviously.
just,
But
gears have changed, everything has shifted. But yeah, you made a bunch of really valid points. Obviously, when we're a host, when our body becomes a host, a toxic host, then we allow for something like this to grow and take over.
yeah,
Now, I want to talk about some issues that come on when you're someone that has parasites that have gotten out of control, right? Because once they do, you mentioned a couple things, Sarah, like, not being able to take foods easily, bloating, fatigue can come on. I just want to touch base on some of those symptoms, and then some things that can help alleviate that for people. I want to just mention some of those things. Sarah,
Sure.
what do you have to say?
Yeah. So if you've been exposed to a parasite, um, and you are exhibiting, symptoms of fatigue, you're losing weight, you have watery stool, maybe even vomiting. Um, these are the signs of a parasite. These are signs of something that's going on. Um, Hava mentioned keeping healthy as obviously a risk factor. If you're not healthy, that's a risk factor, right? If you have Lyme, that's a risk factor. Other risk factors for it, for exposure to parasites is clearly contaminated food, raw food. Sushi seems to be the big one around here. We love sushi, but um, supermarket sushi, I'm reminded that Ed Sheeran song. It's like I love supermarket sushi, but I tend not to eat the raw stuff just because I just don't want a parasite. So anyway, you're exhibiting these symptoms. Obviously, first you'll want to, talk if you want to go to your doctor, I suppose, but you're here on this podcast, so you want to know natural remedies for it. So you buddy up to your favorite herbalist or your favorite person in your health food store and load up on some stuff. Um, yeah, so what would we do? We would do the black walnut hull. These are the things that we had discussed before. We would be eating very plainly. I do know that bulk laxatives are very helpful as well, even though it may seem like insult to injury, but when you're doing a bulk laxative, you're actually going to flush out the whole system as well. I also suggest people not stop the diarrhea because that's your body telling you something. That's your body trying to get rid of something. So we're actually going to encourage that. You want to drink a lot of fluids because when that starts happening, you're going to deplete your body of liquids very, very quickly. So you want to be drinking extra water. And again, I would just be eating very plainly, and loading up on the herbs that I had suggested, even, munching on pumpkin seeds, taking tinctures and powders, and especially so at night. Um, yeah, I mean that's what I would do, and just monitor your symptoms. That's pretty much what I would do, and then
Yeah. You can
eventually
always add colonics onto that.
you
I
could
know
you could. A
personally
lot of
that helped
people,
me
yep,
get
yep,
things going, right?
yep. And
Um,
the thing is too, like I live in New Hampshire, and there are some people that do that kind of stuff, but it's not always common either. So find someone that can give you an enema or colonic. That's a great idea. What are you getting? My dog is
or
like,
even an at-home enema. People need to, I think everybody should own one.
yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, even for your children, they're much smaller than you would see for adults. They come in like it's like a little bulb, like something you would imagine that they when they suck fluids out of a child's nostrils or mouth just when they're born. That's kind of what a baby enema looks like, and
Yep.
children's enema is just a little bit bigger than that. But definitely when like Hava said, constipation is one of the biggest uh hosts. Your body when you're extremely
Hi, Blue.
constipated, you are way more prone to have that problem multiply. And when you are constipated, then your feces are dried feces, right? Where the inside of they're drying up to your colon. And I want Kava to show her diagram after, so people can understand the different bowels that we have. We have the small intestines, the large intestines, but flushing is
Yeah. And,
encouraged.
and this is where the bulk laxatives come in. And another favorite of mine is marshmallow. But also just to touch back upon the garlic, garlic is excellent for as an antimicrobial in general, but
Right.
certainly for parasites. But you have to eat it raw because once you cook it, that antimicrobial property is gone.
Right.
So it's still very good for you, for your heart and stuff, but it's not gonna, so you gotta kind of eat the raw garlic. You're gonna go the garlic route, you kind of have to eat the
Yeah,
raw
but you
garlic.
don't have to just put a whole garlic bulb in your mouth. So
Yeah.
when we're suggesting eating raw garlic, you can just literally crush it into a dish with some olive oil, and then drizzle it, olive oil and lemon, make it into a salad dressing of some sort. You can
You know what's a
crush
good
it
way?
with some, huh?
A good way for your to ingest your raw
Yeah.
garlic is to
Uh-huh.
put it in honey.
That was the next
Were
thing
you
I was
gonna
gonna
say
say.
that?
Put
Yeah.
it in
It's
honey.
really
Yeah.
yummy when you do that.
It is really yummy. I actually have had my kids do that when they're not feeling good as an antimicrobial, or if they have some kind of infection brewing. Um, I'll give them some, like a little teaspoon of honey and crushed garlic on top, and I'll have them chew it before swallowing.
Yeah.
So it doesn't do a lot of wreak havoc on their stomach or esophagus because it can burn, especially in a young body. But my point is there's so many different ways to ingest raw garlic. You shouldn't, you should not, I repeat, do not stick a clove in your mouth and chew on it. It'll burn your mouth.
Or you
I
could
mean, you
just swallow
can.
it. You
You
could just
totally
swallow it.
can, or you could swallow it. It's a tough pill to swallow. But
But yeah, it has to be raw. That's the only thing.
it has to be
I just
raw.
wanted to
And
put that
so
in.
you could add it to, just add it if your spouse or loved one or partner or whomever that lives with you hates the smell of garlic, then tough luck for them, not for you. It's your body, you're taking care of it. I think garlic does wonderful things. It's a huge flavor enhancer too. So I'm all for it. Okay, so I also want to talk about, so we talked about herbs, we talked about, do's and don'ts with lifestyle in order to avoid the growth of, becoming a hospitable place for a parasite. Now, what are some things once you've kind of cleansed your body from them? I mean, Kava kind of touched base on this in terms of like continuing to eat well, washing your hands thoroughly, making you're sure your produce is washed thoroughly because people don't really wash their produce. Like I know I do, but I've seen in households where people don't care to wash thoroughly and inspect. So if you see something is infested, like your broccoli is infested when you wash it, it's better not to eat it. Just toss it out, right?
Some people even laughing. They say, "Oh, it's extra protein." What the
Protein, I
hell is
know.
that? Like, what in the mind
Well,
it
in
is
some
Well, it
extra
cultures,
depends
they
on
do
what
protein?
it
eat
is.
bugs. Yeah,
It
it
depends on
is.
what
Yeah.
it is. Like they're not
No,
all
no. The
there.
parasite, the worms. This is not a protein. I saw recently one woman.
This is
She
not a
was
pro.
walking
I'll
on the
say that
on.
to Mexico, to people in Mexico. They love
I know.
that.
I just
Well,
watched
that's why
Australia
everyone who goes
alone.
there, they look like a shrimp or parasite. I'm sorry to say that. I'm sorry that I might say this, and maybe many people will get upset because that's a part of their culture to eating those stuff. But in reality, we all know that that's why people suffered, because they didn't have the proper care for their food. People would eat infested food. People say, "Oh, look in Africa how people dying." Well, they dying and they have diseases because they don't have a clean water, so they don't have a clean sanitation, and they don't have access to the clean water, right? And yes, the what you eat is very important. The food must be very clean, and if you go to the restaurant and like many people don't understand, but there was one place my husband was giving a class, and it was next to the um, um, bakery, okay, very famous French bakery, and everyone would go by there and pay a lot of money. But my husband would give a class at night next door to it. He saw like these sides of rats walking inside on the kitchen, on the inside, all the places where the cookies are. So
Were they cooking?
understand. Yeah, were they
No, I
cooking
mean, were the
at
rats
night?
cooking?
Yeah,
All the mouses and all the stuff, they
ratatouille
are
style.
coming outside at night.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm like, so you don't know, right? And you can really see if the place is clean or not. Forget about. I one time I went to Vegas and we went to this nice coffee shop. Let's say, well, first of all, I can feel it right away because I'm pretty intuitive with myself, so I can feel if the place is clean or not right away. Well, I would suggest people to learn with a pendulum if they want to get in touch with themselves. But I can really pinpoint. So my husband, okay, let's have a cup of coffee. So I just walk into the place and I'm like looking on the side on this coffee machine. That's the guy was preparing coffee. He didn't clean the milk froster. It was yellow. So and just a couple of minutes ago he was preparing some cappuccino for someone. He didn't clean, and he intend to do the same thing now with my milk. Oh, no way. All over my dead body. I left the store. you need to see right away those symptoms, but we are not realizing. For us, it's like, oh, it's normal. It's not normal. If you see coffee machine that looks dirtier than in your house, then run away from the place, you know.
Right.
And the same thing, it's like it's so important the outside, like if you, what kind of water you drink, if you drink standing water, if the water was standing too long outside, right, that's not clean water. Even if we say, you know, people pay so much money, they have delivered the bottles of water and they keep them outside in the summertime, okay, those bottles of water can sit outside sometimes for a couple days, right? So what gets inside? Closed water. Water is not moving basically, and slowly it gets infested. So people drink dirty water. Filters, even refrigerator filters, they're so horrible because people don't clean them so often. So here we go. We get the dirty water that people drink, and here we go. You have to be aware of that. You know, so many things are can play because like there's more parasites than us, you know. So
Right.
but we as
Most
a human have
importantly,
to be
cleanliness and
careful.
hygiene, right? We have to
Yeah,
understand
hygiene,
that.
hygiene. I always
I
say
know it seems
hygiene.
for us, it's like a no-brainer. For some people,
No,
it's a no-brainer, but it
no.
really isn't for most of our society.
I saw one healer, the guy who they become now very, very good, fashionable, and he spoke about the gut flora. And guess what? He went to the dirt. He touched the dirt a little bit. He took a teaspoon of this dirt, put it in a cup, add water, and he said, "This is the best probiotic you can drink." And he was gulping that. I'm like, are you out of your mind? You just drinking a soil like from outside. Maybe somebody was in a rush and he pees there. How the hell you know? Oh no, maybe it's a sacred place where nobody's pees and poos. Okay, fine. But maybe animal did, or maybe there is like I don't understand, like all these things, like people lost their minds, you know. The water must be clean, the fruits must be thoroughly washed. If there is a little bit hole, you don't touch it, throw it away. Like certain things are so important, but we think it's like more fancier, you know. There's a dirt inside my nails, I feel like more, you know. And
I
Rugged.
then
have to say that there is something too, like, the fulvic acids and the humic acids that people take, the
Right.
shilajit that people take, it's essentially dirt. That's
I
essentially,
agree, I agree, but it's not
obviously
like
it's a
they go dig.
sanitized version of that. We're not going to just go out and eat dirt because of all the things that you said. But when I'm talking about to somebody about healing their gut, which is kind of what Nicole was, after we thoroughly clean the parasites, we're all set. How do we restore? Of course, we want to do the probiotics, right?
Probiotics. Yeah. That's
And
where
so
I
a
was,
lot of times
going
I'm
with
just,
that
yeah,
conversation.
that's a perfect lead into it. It's like you can go out and spend a bunch of money on probiotics. I think people should make their own fermented food, but go out
Oh,
and
yeah.
find a clean area in your beautiful yard and lick a leaf. Like, do you know how all these probiotics are all around us everywhere? And we go and buy them in the pill form, but they literally are on our chairs or on our tables or on all our fruits and vegetables, even if we clean them. And we should clean them, but the good bacteria usually sticks around. And that's why wild fermentation is so beautiful, because you can just use those lactobacillus and the other bacterias to your advantage and make your own fermented food. And then you're going to start to rebuild your gut, because after you've taken all these antimicrobials, you're gonna wipe out some good stuff too. You are,
Right.
because these are very, very powerful.
Right.
Another really powerful one I should mention is golden seal, which I don't use all that much. I usually use Oregon grapefruit, but it will wipe out some good stuff. You know,
And golden seal is very popular. People tend to take that when they're not feeling well.
yeah.
So that's something to mention that if you are, then you need to restore,
You
right?
definitely have to restore things like thyme and oregano. Same thing. It can wipe out they're very
Yeah.
good, but you can get a yeast infection if you take too much of it. So
Right.
there's your, wiping out your good bacteria. So always restore with bone broths and things that build up the mucosal lining, like marshmallow roots, slippery
Marshmallow.
elm, bone broth, collagen. and then rebuild your microbiome or your microbiota or whatever the term is now. With you can do the probiotic pills, or you can make your own fermented food. You can go out and lick a dandelion leaf, um, as long as it's clean, as long as
Right.
nobody's peed on it.
Eat on it. As long as your neighbor's dog hasn't gone on it, but or yours, you never know.
So, yeah.
No, I agree. Probiotics are very important, and I agree with you 100% about the probiotics are very important, and they need to be taken also in proper proportions, and they need to be bought from someone who understands about probiotic and not just a fancy name. Oh, I bought probiotic, because right
Or a
now we are
nice flavored
swimming in
tablet that you find in the
100,000
market.
different
Yeah.
and everyone seems to making probiotics and stick probiotic into everything. That's another weird thing. That's like you do something and they stick probiotics, but not probiotics are such a sensitive things. They are living creatures that they don't like to be, let's say, combined together. And like, because I work with the moms of probiotics, the woman who created the probiotics 50 years ago, Natasha Trenev, she's the one who brought probiotics to America, right? So she's the one who speaks about the power of probiotics, but she is also the one who's trying to regulate. But because it's like so tough market, everyone trying to invent their own, most probiotics are useless. And I can say this because a fancy name doesn't mean anything if you don't understand what the hell you put inside. And the beauty, as we always say, is to simplify the matter. That's why if you look at the probiotics that I have on my website, there's only 3 kinds. There's only a few strains that you need. You don't need 1,000 strains, because when people put too much strains, that there is a fight between of those. And again, it's a fight for survival, and each probiotic can fight with each other, and they can kill each other before they even you hop them into your mouth, right? So their knowledge is important. Then yes, living probiotics like good yogurts are amazing, kefirs are amazing, right? All those are good stuff that we
Kombucha, like
need.
a good homemade kombucha, a kimchi. Kimchi's
Kombucha,
great.
yes, that's
Pickled
all those
vegetable,
stuff.
like torshi.
Right, exactly. Those stuff are also part of it. But if you listen to Natasha and the way she said, not over exaggerate, because they've been always taken in a very small quantity, not like people doing now. Now people buy kombucha and they buy case. And in like 2 days, there is no more kombucha. So now you also took too much of too good. And that's not good either. So you have to use common sense. Kombucha is a medicine. Kimchi and sauerkraut, you take in the small amounts. You don't hop them and you don't drink the whole juice. You do it slowly. You take a tablespoon. You don't take two. You small in small shot cups. If you see, that's how it was. But here, people take something and they go all the way.
All the
Extreme,
way.
yeah.
It's like sometimes we say the kale is good, and now you see kale popping from the people's ears
Yeah.
already. Kale is everywhere.
It's like kombucha.
In
This
the
much
dental
kombucha.
powder.
Like a big mat of it.
Exactly. And exactly,
Yeah.
right? So we end up, so we don't lose your mind as well. So that's what it's important to bring these things, because I see some people say, I drink kombucha. Like, how much? Oh, I drink like 2 bottles. Like, do you know that it's a medicine? If you drink 2 bottles of kombucha, you absolutely ruin your gut flora.
It
So
has
you
so
might
much
say,
sugar.
but
Yeah.
that's one thing. But besides that, it's too much the bacteria that not necessarily needed that much. So just take a small shot. That's it.
Yeah.
Everything should be in proportions. Everything should be using your common sense. I love when I speak common sense. Just use simple common sense. That's
Yeah,
so
use your
important.
intuition as well, right? If
Another
someone
thing I
says,
wanted to mention is using that I didn't say before, but Zapper is very good one. I love to use Zapper, and Zapper incredible because that
it's like an
helps to.
electric,
Yes, it's an electric device that works on zapping certain.
Are you using that on people or your husband or what? Are we
I'm
what are we
using
zapping?
on everything. I did. Well, this is absolutely incredible because that works on the small waves, and you basically
Oh, okay.
have to you water this, and you kind of make it wet, and then you apply this over your hand, let's say, and And then there is a program here I love this zapper. I'm less like the zapper that made from this woman who invented the zapping. I forgot again. Each time I'm forgetting her name. But there's a fast zap, food zapplicate, body zapplicate, and there is a continuous zapplicate and classical zap. So basically, that awakens your system. So you, let's say, press it, and you can do your own things. And in meantime, it's kind of helps to awaken
Is
certain
it
things in your
EMF? Is
body.
it electrical shocks? Like what is
Yes,
it?
it's very
Electrical.
gentle electrical shots.
Does
Very
it help
gentle.
increase circulation? Like what is it?
Yes,
it's
it
stimuli.
basically works on us also cellular level. It kind of awakens internally when if I
Okay.
feel too stressed or I feel that something is not okay, so I would use it. I also use this on my animals. There is a special straps that are made for animals, so you don't combine the animal and humans together. So that's important thing, and that's very good. It's really wonderful, and you can really see how ZAP slowly helps to remove toxins and reawaken the body system. And there's even stories of parasites coming out from different areas,
From your
coming
skin,
out
yeah.
from here,
Mhm.
from
Well,
whatever. That's
actually
great.
a good point to bring up too, is
Yeah, I
detox
was gonna say
baths.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We're on the same wave. Like
Yeah.
Epsom salt baths, there's lots of herbs you can put in to help draw, toxins out of the skin. You can do it that way, castor oil packs, things like that.
Right.
Yep.
I want to go into our chat to answer some of the questions. There's a couple of questions. So dealing with parasites while pregnant, and anything besides the Hulda Clark's protocol.
I was
Yeah,
trying
Hulda
to look
Clark.
that up, but I don't know
I
what
don't
it's
know
called.
Hulda
Yeah,
Clark
that's
is.
Hulda Clark. This is the woman that I was speaking about. She invented the zapper, and
Oh, well, there
really,
you go.
Well, if I
yeah,
knew
she's
her,
the one. She's the
well, if
one
we
who
knew her
invented this.
protocol for pregnancy parasites while pregnant, then I could answer the
But
question.
what about the mentioned herbs that the stuff that you mentioned? We know, okay, so enemas should be definitely be avoided while pregnant, because they can induce contraction. So you're not going to do anything like an enema.
No, and no
Um
bulk laxatives. I
no
wouldn't do
bulk
that.
laxatives,
No
right?
major antimicrobials. Those are because, again, I'm sorry, it might sound mean, but being pregnant, your baby is like a parasite.
It is.
And
No,
your
it
body actually
absolutely
can,
is. And your body reacts to it like a parasite.
right. And so when I actually help women with birth control, a lot of the herbs
That's weird.
are
You said
immune.
first.
It is, but they're immune boosting herbs. And if you boost your immune system, you don't carry a pregnancy, especially in the first trimester. So
Right.
that's indicative of what I was saying. Plus, we don't use major antimicrobials or antifungals or anything like that internally for pregnancy. I imagine the pumpkin seeds would be okay,
What
right?
about the black walnut tincture she's asking, or wormwood?
I wouldn't be comfortable with you doing that while pregnant. I suppose if you did small amounts, but then isn't even
I was
gonna.
gonna say in a diluted amount, but also take into account what Chava said in terms of like, okay, we've us three women, we have been pregnant, right? So these incredible, intense pregnancy cravings of just things that are high in sugar or
Oh,
um
pumpkin.
yeah, so you want to avoid those things, and you kind of want to make sure that your diet is extremely clean, that you're feeding yourself well, that your food is washed, that you're extremely hydrated, that you're using the bathroom. A lot of people don't talk about constipation during pregnancies. It's one of the most common symptoms. Most people talk more about morning sickness. For me, it was the exact opposite. Nothing went out, everything stayed in. One of my pregnancies, I didn't go to the bathroom. Maybe once a month, I went to the bathroom if I was lucky.
Oh my God, girl.
And that's my only symptom. And by the time I was done with the babies, I knew I was so overly parasited to the point where like my body was just going nuts. And so then I started an aggressive treatment. I'm like, still regulating. But my point is that you try to help your body during that process by not doing an aggressive treatment. And then once you have your baby, you can go more into those aggressive treatments and start doing things like that that can aid your body rid of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then I want to mention too, I looked up her protocol, this Hulda Dr. Hulda lady.
Yeah.
And I don't know if she says this one's safe during pregnancy, but she's got black walnut hull, wormwood. But she mentions clove, and I imagine if you did like little bits of clove and cinnamon and some honey, that would be really good too,
Oh
mixed with
yeah, we didn't
garlic and
mention
something.
cinnamon. Cinnamon is a huge anti-parasite,
And
right?
I really think it's part of it would be it's safe in pregnancy. Like I don't feel like I would want to absolutely look it up, but cinnamon is totally fine in pregnancy.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
and then you could do like a cinnamon honey garlic
Garlic.
situation, like make a paste and do, just hit and eat it daily. I bet that would be
Right.
great. And then, like you said, hit it hard once that baby's out. Yeah.
Hit it hard once that baby's out. Exactly. Okay, so
I think I
another,
have that right in front of me. Black walnut hull tincture, wormwood, clove,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, she said her
ornithine, and
protocol is
arginine.
clove, wormwood, and black walnut.
And these are tinctures and then encapsulations too that she's got. So,
I
Right.
would lend more into the tincture and then obviously dilute it with water and do it in a smaller quantity and
yeah.
see how your body reacts to it as well. So start with minimal and then increase if you need to. And then,
Also, I want to add something. You need to prepare your body before you getting pregnant. Let's put it this way. You have to know that
Well,
you are preparing yourself, preparing your body, and not doing anything while you're pregnant. That's very important because some people they want to do they want to do liver detoxes while they're pregnant, and
yeah,
they want to do different.
wild.
Don't do anything while you are pregnant. Now you're carrying a baby. Your time is to nourish and feed yourself, but yes, use make sure that you're moving your bowels every single day. That's just like should be the most important thing that's stuck in your mind. And do not eat obviously sushi and all the raw, like Sarah and Nicole mentioned before, but those stuff are absolutely disgusting. I mean, I pulled worms from fish and I know how they look. That's absolutely disgusting. So I always would suggest, if you're planning to get pregnant, prepare your body before.
she
There
said
is
Yeah.
no way
She
that
said she did before. She's early on in her pregnancy, but the pregnancy brought it back, or kids brought it back. I'm not sure if the pregnancy.
well,
Um,
your immune system takes a dive when you're pregnant.
Exactly. And then when your immune system takes a dive, then your body becomes more of a host to these bad things. So, because you're very early on in this pregnancy, first get through the first trimester, middle of second trimester, you can try to introduce these types of things. But, like we all said, hydration, clean eating, hygiene. Yeah, just in the beginning, it's very important to make sure that you're passing that 3 month mark into the second trimester. This is the most important part of the pregnancy. Um, you don't want to risk, God forbid, losing the baby because you went aggressive with the treatment
Yeah.
for whatever.
She's so
Yeah.
early in her
common
pregnancy.
sense. Food
Yeah.
is
Food,
your,
food,
let the
food.
food be your medicine and
Right.
medicine your
Yes.
food. So you do concentrate on the foods that we mentioned. And
Right. And then,
there is no harm by having pomegranate, and there is no harm by eating pomegranate with seeds or prepare pomegranate tea or
And
molasses,
pineapple.
right? Yeah,
right.
there's
Pineapple,
no. Yeah, pineapples, garlic, and as Sarah mentioned, it's
cinnamon.
very important. Garlic should be raw. So whenever you serve, I usually like whenever you serve the soup, crush 1-2 cloves garlic inside. And if your children they are prone to have stuff, then you really have to look into their diets, because their diets are the one that probably what brought it and
Or
will continue
and or
bringing it.
cleanliness of their schools or daycares or wherever they are.
Yeah.
Let's answer another Carmela's question. So, can hemorrhoids that come out after multiple deliveries, can they get worse because of parasites and have blood in your stool? So there's a lot to pack in there. Hemorrhoids can definitely come out after multiple deliveries. That we can attest to, right?
Okay.
Can they? Yes. Can they get worse because of parasites? Well, if you're extremely constipated, then
So
yes.
hemorrhoids are really about bearing down when, it's a chronic constipation is usually what gets you there. It can also be a combination of that and food sensitivities. It's usually
Right.
dairy or wheat for people. It depends. And so, I would be just using things like witch hazel and rose water and some salves, and then just reducing your dairy and seeing if those would go away. So you
And then if
she's
you have
not
stool,
constipated.
and if you have blood in your stool, then it's definitely, or most likely, a food aversion, right? Something is going on,
That's usually
or
where I would
or
go.
your intestines, may be suffering. So definitely, you would want to first, because you are having a hemorrhoid issue, and it's most likely because of constipation. You want to get those bowels moving. Um, so I would like to mention again, I do every podcast, but I want to mention it regardless. Both of our healers that we have here that we're discussing all this wonderful stuff with, they do have websites. So we have sarahsherbs.com, havawellness.com. You can visit both of them. A lot of their products are on there. Some may not be, but you can reach out to them through their websites or through our, oh, it's so cute, through our Instagram pages. Um, social media pages. But my point is that you can find a lot of their bowel protocols or formulations that they have on their site. And so, and if you've not watched it, in our previous episodes, one of our first episodes, I think it's the third one that we did, it's all about the bowels. So we do discuss a lot of things to get how to get the bowels moving, why they're so important to the body. And if you listen to any of our other podcasts, almost every single one of them mentions the bowels because all diseases start in our gut. So if our gut's not healthy, we can
So let,
definitely
let, let me show you. This is Dr. Norman Walker's chart,
Yeah.
and this is our colon. And if you really
go
look
this way a little bit.
into,
We can't see. Yeah, there you go.
I don't know if how can you see it? Okay.
Now we
So
can.
okay, so if you really
Okay,
see the
back up, back
problems,
up.
and I just want to show you like problems. You see? So someone just mentioned because of the pregnancies, there is a bleeding. Now, if you see the blood in your stool, that means it's coming closer to the anus area, which, let's look closer. What does it shows you? That shows you sugar imbalance. You see here?
Yeah, blood.
Blood sugar imbalance. Yeah.
Okay, so now someone came to us and said that because of the pregnancies, I no longer have a constipation, but if I move my stools, then I see, let's say, I get hemorrhoids, but I also see blood. It's very simple. You look in here and we'll right away will show you. First, if you see the blood, so that's closer to the anus, meaning closer to your rectum, okay? And it shows right away blood sugar balance. So that shows you right away, I'm sorry, even though we are trying our best, we have a problem with sugar. So see, that's like so easy. We always trying to kind of justify our behavior and say, no, I'm not constipated. This is like first thing people, I'm not constipated. Yes, but you have this, your hair is falling. Why your hair is falling? Because let's go back to the bowels, let's go back to your kidneys. Your kidneys are not filtering enough, then you obviously have a problem. But why the problem start? Because of the bowels. So everything it shows you in a bowel. So let's say anything you're gonna mention, you have you don't see well, your eyes are a problem. What this has to do? That has to do with your colon. If you look up here somewhere, he mentions eye problem is because of our colon. So all the problems are located here. So whenever people come, that's why we put so much into it, and that's why we push so much, is that all other questions are just a nice cover-ups for the main problem, and that's why we really have to be strict with what we
Right.
do. Yeah.
Because whatever we put into our body goes into our stomachs. And if we're not putting good things, and our stomach is suffering, and then the rest of the body is suffering. One day I
Right.
want you to tell that nice little short story about the body parts arguing. I
Oh,
loved one
yes.
time I heard Chava speak somewhere. I don't remember where, but she gave a good story. But we're all out of time. Um, so I want so I just want to, I think we made enough closing statements, but I do want to thank everybody for joining us. Whether you were on live or through our Zoom, or if you're watching us, if you're watching a recorded show, thank you so much for being with us. Next time, we are going to be discussing pain management, and what that
Ooh.
means. Yeah, a lot of people are in pain, and number one way to manage it nowadays is narcotics, which is extremely terrible. And we'll talk all about it, and we'll talk about how you can manage your pain naturally and what you can do to your body to help. But yeah, thank you all for joining us. We'll see you next time on Heal Yourself Naturally. Again, please visit our lovely healers at sarahsherbs.com, havawellness.com. And thanks again.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.